Greetings and salutations. Welcome to Knife Chats with Tobias. We interrupt our regular programming to bring you my top 5 Rough Ryder knives. And this was inspired actually by a video from Big Red EDC. He put up a video called My 5 Favorite Rough Ryder Knives. And so in there I commented, hey, that sounds like a good idea. I think I will go ahead and do that as well. And since then, several other people have already beat me to the punch with that, which is cool. I have really enjoyed looking at everybody else's top 5 Rough Ryder knives. Unfortunately, I could not just rush through this because, well, I've been collecting Rough Ryder knives for about 14 years, and something that Williams Knife Life had mentioned was that there's no way he could just pick 5 favorite Rough Ryders and throw out a video on that. And I kind of understand what he's where he's at with that, and that's why I'm approaching this in the way that I am. Anyway, some pretty cool boxes. This was like the earlier boxes. I think this is the first Rough Ryder box that actually had the Ryder on the box. Before then, they actually turned out Rough Ryder knives in just a plain white box with the barcode on it. I think this is the second box, the blue box, and this was the most common box when I started collecting Rough Ryder knives, the blue box, and this remains for me the coolest of the Rough Ryder boxes, the blue denim one. With the information about Teddy Roosevelt on the side. Never really got into the big magnetic boxes, but typically, if the knife wasn't in a series, it was in this kind of box. With that said, let's move forward. Before I go into naming my top 5 individual Rough Ryder knives, I think I'm going to mention the top 5 series of Rough Ryder knives. Most of them I do not have all of the knives in the series, but these are my favorite Rough Ryder series that I have. I'm going to start with one where I only have 2 of the knives, and that is the Moonshiner series, the Rough Ryder Moonshiner series, with this wonderful barrel here. I think this was one of the designs by Brian Wilhoit. Brian is definitely my favorite Rough Ryder designer. I've got a couple knives that he designed as well, but these are just the Rough Ryder series that I really like by him. Here's the other thing that came with it, a 2-ounce flask. All of them have the hillbilly laying back, and then you got the little moonshiner moon up there on top. And I showed you the top already once. They all came with this barrel. I believe there were 5 or 6 knives in the series. I only got 2 of them. I got the sow belly and the canoe. Here is the sow belly. This was, I believe, the first sow belly I picked up. It's got the wonderful moonshiner shield there. And then let's close the blades, except for the clip blade. And you got the wonderful moonshiner leaning back there. Got a little jug next to him and everything else. Yeah, this is definitely one of my favorite Rough Ryder series, the Moonshiner series. Next up, A Stroke of Luck. This was also a series, I believe, by Brian Wilhoit. And on this one, you've got the really cool Rough Ryder horseshoe shield, and then these wonderful bolsters. I guess some people would say they're pretty gaudy, but I think they're really cool. And these were fashioned off of some bolsters that were found in the National Knife Museum. This was one of the earliest Rough Ryder series to have the reverse frosting on the blade too. And you see A Stroke of Luck there. Obviously, the first one I picked up was the large toothpick, and that really made the series for me, the fact that it had a large toothpick in it. But I do have a few other ones from there, and one of them is the Longhorn, I believe is what a lot of people call it. That's the double lockback. You got the blade there, and the other blade over here. So it's kind of like a cross between a canoe and a, a canoe, and a muskrat. Still collecting these knives. As I find them, I grab them. Same thing with the Moonshiner series, but those are very expensive, and I'm not going to pay what a lot of people are asking for them. Got the large Stockman in here too, and also the canoe. I believe there's 2 or 3 more knives I need to get in here. One of them being the 6-bladed Stockman, which is real difficult to find. I believe there's also a mini trapper and a standard trapper in it. So, but I'll eventually get all of the stroke of luck. That's a really cool one that I really like too. So that's 2 of the series that I really dig. And coming in at number 3 here is a series that a lot of people really like, and that's the Outdoorsman series. I'm still holding out beyond hope that eventually there will be a scout pattern knife in the Outdoorsman series, as well as a large toothpick. They do still make some knives in the Outdoorsman series, and they have resurrected the really cool acorn shield that comes with it. This is, if you notice carefully, you see the RR in the acorn shield, was really cool. This is the half hawk, one of the earlier half hawks that was in the Outdoorsman series. Here's another cool one that was in the Outdoorsman series. This is the Knettler, the locking three blade canoe. The main blade operates off of its own spring, has a lock on it, got a wonderful spear blade there, and then you have a second spear blade and a coping blade on a 3¼ inch canoe frame. I think it's 3¼ inches. Let's see here. Yeah, 3¼ 3 1/8, something like that. Small little canoe frame there. Obviously the sow belly was in there too. They also pulled out the early dog bone jack and threw it into the Outdoorsman series as well. So that was another cool one. A lot of knives have been made in the Outdoorsman series. The cool thing though was the fixed blade that they also put in there. I've shown this knife many times. This is one of my favorite Rough Ryder knives. I will even say that this has got to be an honorable mention in my top 5 Rough Ryder knives. See the acorn shield on there. This is just a beautiful knife. They really, really, really need to release this knife and other handle materials and just bring it back in the Outdoorsman series. This is just a fantastic knife. So honorable mention on my top 5. If it isn't one of my top 5, it's like one of those that is tied for 5th place among my my top 5s, and definitely shows up in the Outdoorsman series, so that's pretty cool. Glow series is not one of my top 5 series in Rough Ryder knives. Now next up is the Arrowhead pocket knives, custom designed by Brian Yellowhorse himself for Rough Ryder. This was a collaboration with Brian Wilhoit. I believe Brian Wilhoit did the artwork on the box, and Yellowhorse did the knives and such, and they're just really stunning. I just love the way the turquoise looks on here, and you notice it's all bumpy and everything. You've got the Cherokee Arrowhead shield, and then you've got the embossing on the bolsters and everything. Several knives were in the series. One of the cool ones that came out later was the little neck knife that was in the series. No shield on that one, but it is a little fixed blade, which is pretty cool. It's got the baby elephant toenail in there, and got the mini canoe. All sorts of really cool knives in it. I still have a few more to grab in this series, and I am working desperately to get the whole series of these too. It's definitely a dead series. You're not going to, I don't believe they're going to be adding anything more to it. This was an add-on. I believe that was the only other knife that was ever added into the series. But yeah, the Arrowhead pocket knives designed by Brian Yellowhorse for Rough Ryder. That is a really cool series. And then that brings us to the really big series that I really, really dig, and you probably already know what that series is. Let me clear this away first, though. And I'll give you a hint. The knives in that series are not white smooth bone, though I love collecting white smooth bone. The white smooth bone knives are not a true series in my opinion, because well, they just come in a standard box. The knives I'm referring to as a series have their own special box for the series, and white smooth bone do not fall into that category. So you know what the knife is. And that brings us to the Stonework series of knives. This is the original box. This is the later box, the new series that just came out with the magnetic boxes. I'm throwing them all together because, well, they kind of all match. You know, they're all the Stoneworks knives. Both the original series and the later series had a large toothpick. This is the later series large toothpick. Here's the baby sunfish from the first series. The difference between the two series is basically in the way the bolsters are, and then the stone alignment, the differences in stones that were made in it and everything else. Plus the newer knives all have a swedge and a half stop, or most of them have a half stop on the blade. The earlier series have no swedge, and they do not have half stops and such. But I just put them all together. So an enormous collection of knives, and I really just dig the Stoneworks knives. They're my favorite series from Rough Ryder. And so there's the 5 favorite series that I've shown. I've left out many a really cool series: the Rifleman series, the Long Gun series, the Bowie series, the Bowie series. I don't know, the Once in a Blue Moon series. There are so many old series that people are unaware of that are out there, and then all the new series too that are out there. You got the Tiger Stripe, the Easy Money. Wow, I can't even. Got the Zombie Nick out there, the Moon Glow or the Glow. So there's so many series out there, but those are my 5 favorite series, at least as of now. With that said, a couple digressions before we get into my actual top 5 knives. And the first one is the camp knives, the scout knives. You're not going to see those among my top 5. It has nothing to do with the camp knives themselves. I really love the camp knives. Not so much the later ones with, well, at least this one has a little brass in it. These I'm not as crazy about because of how heavy and wide they are. I like the ones with the bone handles. This is the Camp King. This is their new version of scout knives, and they're okay, but they're not as cool or as nice as the earlier camp knives. These are the ones I always recommend people grabbing. It has the old funky can opener on it, you know, but this can opener works really good for a box cutter. And as you can see from this, I probably need to sharpen this a little bit. Those nicks and dings on there are from me opening cans. So should have just left it as a box cutter. But anyway, I really like the older camp knives. I wish they would start making this pattern again. It's much slimmer than the newer ones. It's a little slimmer, a little less light, or a little less heavy. I don't know. Just all in all, it's just a better knife in my opinion. Also has a good blade stock going on. But still need to find one. I think they made these with a round shield. I don't know. This is the old propeller shield. I should do top 5 Rough Ryder shields someday too. In any case, you're not going to see the camp knives among my top 5. And you also will not see my medium toothpicks among the top 5, although they're really terrific. And these are, I can honestly say, these are my top 5 medium toothpicks by Rough Ryder. And the reason I can honestly say that is because these are the only medium toothpicks by Rough Ryder. So I wish they would come out with more of these. It's a really cool pattern. There are some that were in the Colt lineup that they could easily just throw back into here, because like the Blue Peak, which was a Rough Ryder pattern, and the what is it, the Buckshot Bone, both of those have medium toothpicks in the Colt lineup, but not in the Rough Ryder lineup. So those should be pulled over into the Rough Ryder line. Doubt it'll ever happen. Love to see a medium toothpick in White Smooth Bone, or also in the Glow series. So you're not going to see a medium toothpick within these top 5 patterns. I'm trying to go away from the usual knives that I grab, which are toothpicks and scout knives. And speaking of toothpicks, you'll be seeing a review of this one real soon. This is the Moon Glow large toothpick. It's out now. That's one of the large toothpicks on the 5-inch frame. Then you've got the High Plains toothpick with the High Plains bone. Here's the Rifleman toothpick. Got 2 different versions of the saw cut bone, one with the round shield, one with the bow tie shield. That's pretty cool. So there's 5 of the large toothpicks. Tater skin with the big R. There's a couple with the big R. I think this one and this one have the big R. I don't think any of the other ones have a big R. It's not as annoying when it's just 1 or 2 knives. It's when every knife has it that it becomes problematic. Any case, the long rifle. Are we all in frame? Probably not. Let's move you over to here. Then we have 2 different Stoneworks large toothpicks. This is the first version and the second version of the Stoneworks toothpick. And finally, the Stroke of Luck large toothpick. So those are all the large toothpicks that Rough Ryder makes. I would even have a hard time just grabbing 5 out of here and saying these are my 5 favorite large toothpicks by Rough Ryder, because obviously it's easy to get the first 4. That's really easy for me. I could say, yep, this one here, boom, want the Glow. I want the Stroke of Luck, definitely the Stroke of Luck. Those 2 would definitely be there for large toothpicks. And then, I'd fight a little bit about this. I would probably end up going with this one because it's got the fancy bolster on there and no half stop. So I'd grab that one too. So there's 3 right away. This one or this one. Really hard for me to choose between those. I got a lot of these too, so I know this is one of my favorite. I carry one of these, or carried one of these for years, so I know this is one of my favorites. So there's 4, and I'd probably go with that bone. I like the way that bone looks better than this bone on this particular knife, but next week I would go and say no. And there's 4, so we got that. But then, what about these other 5? Which one comes in 5th place? And I don't have an answer for you. And that's the way it goes with this. And that's what I think Williams Knife Life was talking about. Well, it's like, how do you pick 5 favorites when you really like the pattern a lot? And when you got like over 300 of these Rough Ryder knives, it's just, it's hard for me to pick 5. But that was the call, and so let me show you my top 5 now. Did you like how I snuck in all those toothpicks and scout knives without actually saying they're one of my favorites? But yeah, they're one of my favorites. Another thing that are some of my favorites are the stag knives. You're not going to see any of the stag knives. And then the fixed blades. I think I'm going to reserve my top 5 favorite fixed blades by Rough Ryder for a later video. However, one of them might still sneak into my top 5 because these top 5 that you're going to see in just a second are truly knives that, when I think of some of my favorite knives from Rough Ryder, these really do fit that bill. They would show up on a lot of different top 5 lists as well. Okay, without further ado, let's get into my top 5 favorite Rough Ryder knives. And you will have seen, I believe, every one of these knives on the channel at one time or another, simply because, well, they are my favorite knives, so I have shown them in the past. No particular order here, but these definitely, when I start thinking of top 5 Rough Ryder knives, these always come to mind. So that's why they're here. So let's get moving. And first up is the 078 Burlwood Lockback. I'm sure you've seen this before. I just love the lines on this knife. I love the way the blade looks. I love that harpoon blade. I love how you can get your finger or thumb up on there. Really good lock on the back there. Very positive lock. This was like a $7 knife when it came out. They're going for like $20, $25 now. Sometimes you can get them for less than that. Just a really beautiful knife. Great lines on it. It is definitely patterned after a Moki knife out of Seki City, Japan. This was made in China. I'm sure it's using, most likely, it could be using 440, but it could also just be using 420 steel. This was a very early Rough Ryder knife, and they used different steels back then. And all they listed as is, I believe, stainless. Yeah, it doesn't even say what steel. Doesn't even say if it's stainless, but it is. Definitely made in China. You got the Rough Ryder signature there on it. Wonderful burlwood. A satin or brushed finished stainless steel bolster going on. Just a beautiful knife. I think it went for like $6, $7 when it first came out. And I bought bought one when it first came out, and immediately wished I had bought 2. Any case, let's go on to the next knife. And this knife shows up just about every year on the channel. It's the dog bone jack. I just love the dog bone jack. And it comes with this nice little leather sheath, little Rough Ryder sheath there, or a slip, you want to call it that. It's got a clip on the back there, so you can hook it onto your belt, hook it onto your pocket, whatever you want. But I just love the dog bone jack. And while they call it a dog bone jack, it is really basically a funky equal end jackknife or equal end pen knife. And you see the swelling bolsters there. You got the dog bone shield. It has only appeared on a couple knives. I think might only be on the dog bone. I think they might also have another dog related knife that has it. It comes with a dog training whistle. Now this is not a silent whistle. And matter of fact, a lot of people were complaining because it wasn't a silent whistle, but most dog trainers will tell you that silent whistles are really rough on the dog's ears because you don't know how loud it is when you're blowing it. So when you have something like this that you can actually hear, it's not nearly as bad on the dog or you. And it has the hidden tang. You see that show up on some later knives, or I'm sorry, hidden lanyard post, so you can remove this and not even notice that there's a lanyard post on there. Got the long French pull on the blade here. Got the wonderful edge, the dog bone jack edge. And then on the other side you have the spade blade. And interesting, the spade blade has a half stop, but the main blade does not. So it's pretty cool. Anyway, dog bone jack, definitely one of my favorites all the time. These 2 knives show up in just about any list. If someone was asking your favorite lockbacks, this knife shows up. Your favorite pen knife, this knife shows up. And those knives, they're on so many favorite lists. It would be hard for me not to say they're not one of my favorite Rough Ryder knives, and they definitely are. Third up, My white smooth bone marlin spike knife by Rough Ryder. I like the marlin spike knives. I like sailing knives in general. This is patterned off of the old Camilla 697. I went and had it some scrimshaw work done on it by right down here. You can see the guy's name, O'Brien. It was T.F. O'Brien. He did this back in 2010. And this has been one of my favorite Rough Ryders ever since. This depicts the Mermaid of Warsaw. I've always been a fan of Warsaw and Poland. I'm just one of those kind of weird people like that. Yeah, I'm an American, I'm a hillbilly and everything else, but the history of Poland has always interested me, and the history of the city of Warsaw with the Warsaw Uprising during World War II and everything else. And how the Polish people were ripped off during World War II by the Allies, something that we still have never really quite apologized as well as we should have. In any case, just a big fan of Poland and Warsaw in general with the Warsaw Uprising, and big fan of the Mermaid of Warsaw because, I mean, come on, warrior princess who defends the city against all foreign invaders and everything else, armed with a big old sword and a shield and everything else, and you know it's a half-naked mermaid. So what's not to like about the Mermaid of Warsaw? And to have it on a marlin spike knife was just really cool. So that's why this is one of my favorite knives, and also why I just really like the marlin spike knives by Rough Ryder. Okay, next up in my collection of favorite Rough Ryders, 5 favorite Rough Ryders, is going to be this white smooth bone elephant toenail. Now, I really like the elephant toenail that Rough Ryder puts out. They also have the sunfish pattern, which is equal in, but the elephant toenail is more of a sleeve board design. And it is one of my favorite patterns, but the reason this is one of my favorite Rough Ryders is because I went and put an elephant on the front of the elephant toenail. And so this is my own scrimshaw work, and I'm kind of happy with it. I know it's not perfect in any way, shape, or form, but I thought, what the heck, let's put a white elephant on a white smooth bone elephant toenail. And so that's what I did, and I'm really kind of proud of it and also happy with it. And the knife itself, well, you got that big fat blade on there, 448 stainless steel, which you see on so many Rough Ryders. And then the secondary pin blade, which is really a secondary Spearmaster as well. This blade is about the same size as what you find on the canoe. So that's the size of these blades on this thing. The knife itself is 3 7/8 inches long. I'm working on another scrimshaw work on this knife, and you see it right here. It looks kind of funky right now, but what I'm doing is, and you'll see on the other side here too, basically it's going to be like elephant skin. And what I'm going to eventually do when this is all done, and I really need to get started on it again, is dye it black so that it will basically end up being like a dark gray, and it's going to be my elephant skin elephant toenail. That's what that's going to be. But currently this is one of my top 5 favorite Rough Ryder knives, my scrimshawed elephant toenail. Let's see if he stands up. Okay, and with that said, I'm going to have to turn the camera around so that I can show you my 5th choice for favorite Rough Ryder knives. And note, I'm saying 5th choice. This is not my number 5 choice or my number 1 choice. This just happens to be one of my top 5. I cannot rank any of these as number 1. Okay, the camera's turned around, so you can probably guess that it's going to be a relatively large knife, and indeed it is. Now, for those of you who are thinking it might be the D-guard Bowie, not at all. It's this one right here, the Rough Ryder paratrooper buoy. Now there's a number of reasons why this is among my favorite Rough Ryder knives, but the main one is because this knife is a copy of the Model 8 John Eck paratrooper buoy from World War II. Now the sheath is all wrong. This is a nylon sheath. I saw someone comment that it's not even jump qualified, the sheath, because there's only one strap and it's a Velcro strap. This would never work if you were to jump out of an airplane today, because, well, you need two tie downs on a sheath in order for the knife to be jump qualified. So you would basically have to run a piece of 100-mile-an-hour tape around this and tape it in to keep it from falling off of you if you're jumping out of an airplane. The interesting thing is in World War II, when John Eck designed this knife, it just had a cheap leather sheath that it dropped into. There was no tie down at all. And I don't know what they did if they were jumping out of an airplane. But it was known as the paratrooper buoy. And it was designed by a fellow named John Eck back in World War II. He used a type of steel that was semi-stainless that was also used for aircraft landing gear. I think it was a 4340 nickel chrome millennium or something another like that. This one, however, is actually in carbon steel, and it is made in El Salvador in the Condor factory for Rough Ryder. And it's the paratrooper buoy that is almost a direct copy of the John Eck paratrooper buoy. And if you go back on my channel, you will see that I have a video talking about my grail knives and what I consider a grail knife. And one of my grail knives is a original John Eck paratrooper buoy, which is nearly impossible to find, and if you can find them, they run in the thousands of dollars. But what I have in its place is the Rough Ryder paratrooper buoy, which is pretty close to it. And the original one had a wood handle, like I said, a different kind of steel blade. This is not made in China, also El Salvador. The originals were obviously made in the United States. The top edge here is not sharpened. The bottom edge obviously is sharpened. It's got that nice scimitar buoy shape to it. The handles of the original ones were just wood. There were no finger grooves in it. It came with sandpaper and with instructions to fit the knife to your hand. So it basically was just kind of bowed out here, and you were supposed to carve it to fit your hand. You could drill a hole through it if you wanted to, because of the way the full tang ran. The full tang ran along the top here. It was actually held in place with 3 lead rivets. These are brass rivets holding it in place. The original had 3 lead rivets. And the idea was if the handle started getting loose or something, you could just pound on the lead rivets and tighten it back up. So that's the way. The knife was as crude as could be. The only thing cruder was the leather sheath. To find the leather sheaths is almost impossible because they just rotted. The way John Eck gave these out was you needed to fill out paperwork, and you needed to have proof that you were actually going overseas in the combat. He did not want a bunch of desk rats basically grabbing knives that were designed for combat. So that's the way it was worked. They were privately purchased through the PX, but you needed basically orders saying, yeah, I am in such and such kind of unit and I am being deployed. So that's who got the knives for, and at the time I think the original was going for like 20 bucks, which is about what this sold for when it first came out, 20 bucks. Came with the sheath here, the nylon sheath with the paratrooper wings on the bottom and the paratrooper words on the bottom there. Came with a little sharpening stone instead of sandpaper. And then also you had the nice artwork on the box which I'm dropping. Famous scene from D-Day with Eisenhower, and that was one of the soldiers from the 101st. But you got the 82nd Airborne there, 101st Airborne there. Really nice box that it came in, so a really nice presentation box. I made my own sheath for it, and this is made out of old. This is made out of an old canvas backpack, you know, of webbing material and such. And again, there's no tie down on this thing. Little loop there, you could tie it down into there. Leather strap on the bottom there too, and then the old wire hook for the web belt and a pair of jump wings on there. And so there's my number 5 in my Rough Ryder lineup, and the reason it's number 5 is because this is one of my favorite. This would be one of my favorite knives of all time if I could ever get an original Model 8 John Eck paratrooper buoy. As it is, I've got the Rough Ryder one, and that's probably the closest thing I'm going to get, unless I can find a really good replica. And I don't know of anyone making a better replica than this. So there you have it. There's the number 5 knife. Let's get back to the workbench. So just to recap, there's the copy of the John Eck paratrooper buoy, made in El Salvador, 1070 carbon steel. I believe it's 1070 or 1075. Just a really fantastic piece of history going on here. I know it's not the original, but to get the original is like $3,000 if you're lucky enough to find one. That's one of the things that I really like about Rough Ryder, is they bring back patterns from history and bring them back to life so that we can enjoy them. Also, they have knives that, you know, like the Burlwood lockback here, which is the copy of the Moki. So Moki knives go in the hundreds of dollars. This one was $7. Then you got the little dog bone jack. That's always going to be one of my favorite knives. And then you know, when you get something personalized like this, how can you not call it one of your favorites? And then and when you do the work yourself, another reason why it's one of my favorite Rough Ryders. If I had not done this on a Rough Ryder, I probably wouldn't have tried this on like a case or some other white smooth bone knife that would have been going in the $60 to $70 to $80 to $100 range. But because this knife was $15, it was worth taking a shot at it. And that's really one of the other great things about Rough Ryder knives. They're such a low price that you can experiment with them, you can modify them and everything else. Any case, with that said, I'm going to wrap this up and call it a day on my top 5 favorite Rough Ryder knives. Might be a different top 5 next week, and I will revisit top 5 favorite fixed blades from Rough Ryder. Who knows, I might even do a top 5 modern folders from Rough Ryder, but I won't include this in that group because then it just wouldn't be fair. Let me take just a second to thank you once again for dropping by and spending a few minutes here at Knife Chats with the Pious. I really do appreciate it, and I do appreciate any comments that you leave. So please remember to give me that thumbs up, and also don't forget to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you'll know when the next episode is up and running. Thanks again for dropping by. Really do appreciate your time here.